Hello everybody and welcome back. This is Temporal Enigma. So I'm officially going to classify this as a game chat video. For those of you who are new, game chat is pretty much just anything discussing, talking about ideas for, potentials, anything like that around games. You've probably only ever seen ones where I discuss controversies and things like that in games, but this would be considered a game chat as well. And I also wanted to get this video out earlier, but unfortunately, the day after the beta ended was the day my classes started, and I have a full workload this semester, and this is the first day I've ever had to myself. I actually don't have classes on Tuesdays, is just how it happened to work out. Last Tuesday I was busy, and this Tuesday I'm available, so I'm making this video. One other thing, I am working on some new graphics for the videos themselves, ways to do transitions and things like that. They're not ready yet, but I figured this video was more important than getting those graphics ready since we are still kind of in the wake of the Call of Duty beta. So, as a result, you'll see those graphics coming up soon. They're just won't be available in this and maybe the next couple videos. But let's get started. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to talk to you about every single aspect of the beta generally, nothing like super sketchy or simple. For people who didn't get to play the beta and might want to understand some things about the game that they only hear secondhand through what is essentially a complaining community. Because the community, which I've talked about before, will complain no matter what the game is. It could be 100% what they asked for down to the wire and they'd still complain about it. So, let's start off with the biggest things. Number one, I think the game looks really, really good for the Call of Duty engine. The biggest complaint right now is people are comparing Call of Duty to Battlefield, which happens forever, and has happened forever. But, with them being a World War I versus World War II, there are going to be a lot of similarities in the combat, such as the bayonet charge and things, which I'll get to later. But, this year they decided to compare graphics. And I'm not going to get into any of the logistics of why you should or shouldn't do that. Short answer is they're different engines, don't compare them. But I think we all have to agree that the Call of Duty engine has needed an upgrade, a brand new engine, or the next iteration of that engine for a very long time. You know, Frostbite 3 came out a few years ago, has helped out with all the EA games. This one has kind of been the same since 10 years ago with Call of Duty 4. And I'm going to pin this 100% on Activision, that they don't want to pay for a new engine because they know this game's going to make a ton of money, regardless of what it looks like or how it plays. So, you know, with Sledgehammer, I believe 100% that they want to try to put out the best game possible, but Activision won't let them. And as a result, the game looks good for the Call of Duty engine. I don't think it looks bad overall. I definitely think other games look better, but I think as a whole, the game looks pretty good for its engine. The next controversies I'm going to talk about are the lack of swastikas and the addition of women into the multiplayer. Not going to talk about why they shouldn't or shouldn't be there. I found that the women in multiplayer had absolutely no effect on my gameplay experience, as well as the quote-unquote black Nazis. It was extremely difficult to tell what skin color a character was anyway, unless you are that character and you see your own hands, or at the end victory screen. Because all the characters wear a lot of gear. Those Germans wear those heavy wool trench coats and the hats. And the US Marines wear a lot of strap gear along with backpacks and fighting boots and things like that. And it's really hard to see a guy, especially with the shadows and darkness of some of the maps. So that really never bothered me, especially with a woman. The only ever time you knew it was a woman was if you heard her physically use a call-out. Other than that, you really had no idea who was who. I will say the lack of swastikas took me out of immersion more than women did. I completely understand why there aren't any in the game, and short answer, I'm not going to get into this. Short answer, it's a business decision. The game would basically not be allowed in Europe, and it would cost way too many resources on a multiplayer level of a game to start going through and censoring the entire game, because there's actual multiple copies of that game. It's not like a campaign where you just erase it and then maybe release some bug fixes. You need to do, DLC needs to be censored, updates need to make sure that it doesn't uncensor things, and you gotta update everything individually, and it was just easier just to say, you know what, we're just not gonna deal with it. Okay, so that brings me to the actual gameplay. I thought the game was very good. Fast-paced, but still very grounded. I'm not talking about grounded as in not jetpacks. I'm talking about grounded as in just solid and straightforward. And I really like what Sledgehammer did to kind of mix up and stir the pot a little this year with how the game works, because it does very much take a step back in terms of Call of Duty. Part of the reason they've been going to the future is because it allows them to mix up the gameplay. Well, by taking it back and trying to be more historical, they can't. So it was really nice to see some additions into the game that still allow the game to feel fresh while still feeling kind of classic. And I'm going to start off right now by talking about the divisions. I have not heard any YouTubers at all who got to go to the event, who reported on news, anything, fully explain what these things are. And everyone says they are a replacement for the create a class system. They are not. They are an addition to the create a class system. And I'm going to talk about the create a class system and divisions right now. So, the create a class menu looks very similar to how it did in the past. You can equip one primary, one secondary weapon, and some grenades and some perks. You can equip one primary weapon and 2 attachments to it by default. The attachments are unlocked by leveling up the weapon, just like past Call of Duty games. Now, in the beta, there were no camos or custom reticles or anything like that. We know some form of camo or detailing will be allowed to be put on the gun in the full game. I don't know about custom reticles. Technically not, because back then they would have been just little painted dots onto reflex sights. But we'll see. You're also allowed to equip one secondary weapon, or should I say one pistol. And then you're also allowed to equip one tactical or lethal grenade. These include Semtex, concussion grenades, smoke grenades, frag grenades, trip mines, etc. You are also allowed to equip one perk, which they refer to as basic training. These perks are simplified, and they are a variety of things. One perk allows you to equip a launcher as a secondary weapon. One perk allows you to run while reloading. Another perk allows you to shoot while run, the gunslinger. There's a perk that allows you to know when an enemy is looking at you by tinting the sides of your screen. The idea here is that these are skills that a soldier may acquire or specialize in basic training. Things like, oh, okay, I know how to handle my gun while I'm running and reloading at the same time. I can accurately shoot and run at the same time. I can swap my weapons faster. I can have a faster reload. Things like that. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, what about the other perks? You know, in other games, we've had the ability to pick 10 or pick 13 system, where we've been allowed to pick multiple perks, or Call of Duty Ghosts, where we got to pick basically all of them if we wanted to. That's where divisions come in. In the beta, there were 5 divisions. I have no idea if there are going to be any more, but in the beta, there were only 5. Each division is geared toward a different weapon. However, you are not tethered down by that division. And let me explain. So, for example, the infantry division is the division geared toward rifles, assault rifles, and anything that's not a sniper rifle. By default, your first skill is the ability to use a bayonet. This basically gives you a one-hit melee kill, since melee kills are still using the buttstock of your gun, and it takes 2 to kill somebody, just like past games. This effectively gives you a one-hit melee kill, as well as the ability to do a short charge into a melee kill. You can equip any gun you want while running infantry division. However, the bayonet is only equipable to assault rifles, or the rifle category. As you play as a specific division and earn XP, you will level up that division. It levels up to 5 times in the beta. Again, I do not know if there will be more levels in the full game or not. Each level gives you a special ability that's a passive ability that will just work using this division. This works under any combination of weapons, any combination of special training, grenades, anything like that. And I actually have, for example, again, the division training, also for infantry, gives you 2 extra attachments for your primary weapon. This will work across any primary weapon, not just rifles. And it also will give you 1 attachment on your secondary weapon, as well as something else that I do not remember. The 5th upgrade in every tree, every division tree, gives you a classified weapon in that weapon category. And real quick for you right now, I'll run down all the rest of the divisions, as many as I can remember and have listed here. The Airborne Division is your SMG division. Its ability has a suppressor, which hides muzzle flash and allows you to appear off the minimap. They gain upgrades to sprint for longer distances, sprint faster, and climb over obstacles faster, as well as a classified SMG. The Armored Division is your LMG division. They have the ability to deploy a bipod and set up onto ledges or the ground and increase their accuracy and effectiveness. They also get the ability to gain an extra piece of equipment, throw equipment faster. They also take less damage from enemy equipment. The Mountain Division is your Sniper Division. Their default ability is what they refer to as Sharpshooter, which is basically your hold your breath mode. Any other character who picks up a rifle can still use it or equip a sniper rifle. They just can't hold their breath, so you still get that idle sway. And in some cases, it's kind of extreme because they want you to pick the Rifle Division or the Mountain Division. And what that does is it allows you to hold your breath, and it also blanks out the dual render scope so that you can see a little easier. You also gain some abilities as you level up, as you get names of targets from farther away, bigger minimap coverage. You're hidden to UAVs, or sorry, they're called recon planes, if you're crouched or not moving. And then there's Expeditionary, which is the Shotgun Division. They have 4 incendiary shells that load into the front tube of the shotgun. They can also be unloaded. These incendiary shells, I believe, work a little different than they did in the preliminary gameplay. I don't know for certain. I didn't get to play it. But they kind of work like ricochet rounds, where they spread out wide and do a couple little bounces, like once or twice off walls. Then if enough of them hit somebody, they catch on fire. They also get the ability to run both tactical and lethal grenades, taking less explosive damage, and things like that. Divisions you will see everywhere, including this article I just looked at in order to reference those, will tell you it's a replacement for the creative class. It is not a replacement. They did not remove create a class. They adjusted it and added this divisions thing as a new addition to the create a class menu. Create a class is still there. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is weapon balancing. I think the weapons were balanced very well in this game. I did not get a chance to use every single weapon and every single score streak, but I think everything was fairly well balanced. I think the attachments are very useful. All of them have their uses, their advantages and disadvantages, and I really didn't feel like any gun was entirely OP or entirely useless. There were 4 maps in the beta, which I was pleasantly surprised at. Usually they only run 2. And I found myself using each weapon class at a certain time. I don't use a lot of snipers, but I actually felt myself wanting to use them on certain maps in certain situations. Same thing with LMGs. I really like LMGs, but lately in Call of Duty I haven't had a real need to use them. And you're actually finding these little scenarios where it's best to just mount your LMG and spray down on all these guys running around. And I really, really enjoyed that. I think that this is the first time in a while we've had a really good balanced Call of Duty. I did think Infinite Warfare was fairly balanced, but as they started adding more prototype weapons, there were a couple that started to get a little ridiculous. And we're like, okay, that's not fair. And they were balanced a bit, but I really think this game is fairly well balanced. I think the maps are fairly well designed. I think the immersion is really nice in this game. You know, it's got some real feel to it. I think it's really cool that if you're on the German side or the American side, they'll use their own version of the military alphabet at the time. They won't say, you know, Alpha Bravo Charlie. They'll say, like, Baker, for example, was B, or the Americans at the time. And it's kind of like what Battlefield did with using, you know, apples and butter, which was the alphabet at that time as well. And I think it's kind of cool. It just adds to that immersion feeling as well. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is the War game mode. There was only one War map available in the beta, and I only played it once. I thought it was real fun, but I was kind of more focused on playing just multiplayer, regular multiplayer and stuff like that. The War game mode is their big multi-tier game mode that takes about 30 minutes or so to complete. And each team, you start on one side and then you switch, and your job is to complete all the objectives in the time limit if you can. The one they had involved capturing a church, then escorting a tank, then destroying some supplies, then escorting the tank to the end again. And it was extremely fun and extremely unique. Now, the game I played was not a very good game. I've heard other games from other people were much better. But it was also my first game, and I think a lot of people's first game of the game at all, so no one was really into how to play it properly. But it's a very cool game mode. It allows for some outlying things, like you can build MG nests, build walls, build bridges, destroy things, and it just adds this new level of something to the game. I know we're getting zombies, and I know we're getting campaign, but we haven't had this good big multiplayer thing in a long time, and it's very, very cool to see that we have this kind of extra big game mode to play amongst all the regular game modes we're going to have in World War II. So that's all I have for today. The last thing, I guess the one other thing, is I'm really glad they have a mosh pit game mode where you can just play multiple game modes. That's something I've always wanted in a Call of Duty game, and they never seem to put in, except for DLC drops or in hardcore, and it's kind of weird that they don't have like a basic one. Call of Duty World War II had one, at least in the beta, and I hope that carries to the full game. I hope this shed a little bit of light onto the game for you, and I apologize I didn't have World War II footage in the background. I was super busy the weekend of the beta, and I didn't have any time to record any, and then when I did have time, the beta ended. So, rip. So, I'm not sure what I'm putting in the background. Probably some other Call of Duty game. But I hope you enjoyed. And what did you guys think of the Call of Duty beta? I should put a description link to the Reddit page, our Rectify Gaming Reddit page. This is something I want to start, where I can link you to a Reddit page about this, and you guys can discuss. What did you think? What did I think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Anything like that, and we can all join in on the conversation together. So, thanks for watching. Feel free to check out that link, and I'll see y'all next time. Later, guys.